Now I'm in very, very healthy and good relationship. But in the beginning, I wasn't attracted to this amazing person. And I told myself, okay, now I understand that what attracts me is not good for me. And what it doesn't attract me probably is good for me. So I need to work on it and to do this work, from the prefrontal cortex, not from the limbic, emotional, evolutionary, ancient reptile brain.
This is episode number 616 with Dr. Liat Yakir. We are going to be discussing the science of love. This is a fascinating discussion, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Hi, everybody. I'm Sandy Weiner, and welcome back to Last First Date Radio, where we believe it is never too late to go on your last first date. And to support you, I have written 2 books. One is called Becoming a Woman of Value: How to Thrive in Life and Love. And this is a book for you if you struggle with speaking up, with showing up and having all of your values be really clear. This is a book that will help you to thrive in every aspect of your life. And the second book is specifically for dating. It's called Choice Points in Dating. And I wrote this book to help people make better decisions and healthier decisions in their love lives. These books can both be found on Amazon for Kindle or paperback, and Choice Points is now available as an audiobook. This week's tip on becoming a woman of value is step number 23, be aware of your tone. This was something I struggled with for so much of my life. I grew up in a home with a lot of passive-aggressive conversations, especially from my parents. They would say something, but the tone did not match what they were saying. So it's the same as yelling. It's actually worse when you say something and it sounds kind, but you're saying it with so much venom in your voice. So if you tend to suppress what you want to say and say it with the tone of voice that is belying what you are trying to say, I would love for you to challenge yourself this week and have your tone match your words, and make sure that you're really expressing yourself clearly, calmly, and kindly. Before I bring on my guests, I want to invite you to join my Facebook group. It's called Your Last First Date. And we are a group for women over 40 who want to go on their last first date. It is a positive place of support, which is very rare out there in the groups that are available for single women, either on Facebook or any other social media. So we work really hard to keep it a safe space. So I invite you, if you're not yet a member, to come and join us there. My guest today is Dr. Liat Yakir. She is a biologist, an author, and a lecturer, and she specializes in the biology of emotions. She has advanced degrees in genetics and hormone research from the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel. And her new best-selling book, A Brief History of Love, has been translated into multiple languages. Dr. Yakir participated as an expert in the Israeli version of the reality show Married at First Sight. And she also hosts a popular podcast, BrainStory. Welcome to the podcast, Liat.
Hi, Sandy. It's good to be here.
I loved your book. I'm going to hold up a copy for anybody on YouTube. It's an excellent book. It's called A Brief History of Love. And the subtitle is What Attracts Us, How We Fall in Love, and Why Biology Screws It All Up. I love the title. And I was actually polling my Facebook group yesterday to ask them what they thought love was, because I saw that in your book, you asked some friends and asked people you knew. And I just told them I'm going to be interviewing you, and I'd be curious to know how they defined love. And the first 2 people defined it according to romantic relationships. But the third one talked about her love for her pets and her love for her granddaughters. And I love that, because love is so many things. And I think a lot of people feel really like they're missing love, and they don't realize where
Yes.
love is in their lives. So tell us a little bit about your definition of love.
My definitions for me is the release of oxytocin. I know it doesn't sound romantic, but it makes sense because this is the common mechanisms of relationships, of all our relationships in life, family, friends, pets, with any creatures. that we make this bonding, the hormone, the chemical that manifests this feeling of attachment, of bonding and love. It is called oxytocin. It's a small peptide, and the feeling of this hormone makes us relaxed, feel secured, feel connected, and it's essential to our nervous system. It's really essential to our nervous system. So I like it when you say, we like to think about it broader than what we usually think about. Love is like finding the one and be together forever. And there will be one source of oxytocin for me for the rest of my life. And we humans don't work like that. Even in the book, there is a big discussion if we are actually monogamous creature. So we are definitely oxytocin creatures, like all mammalians, but we even more than the other mammalians, we need each other. We need community, we need family, we need children and grown-ups, and to be with all ages in our group. We like a clan. We need to be in a clan, and there we feel meaning in life. There we feel secured and protected and connected. And when you alienate us from each other, of course, we get all the disease and the mental problems and the stress, because we are meant to be connected. Yeah. So this is love for me.
Yeah, well, it's a great explanation. And I think it helps people to hear that, because it actually started me thinking about my close friendships and how good I feel around them. And when my son comes to visit and when he gives me a hug, there's something, oxytocin gets released. He used to, when he lived with me as a young adult, he used to say, Mom, let's do like an oxytocin hug, because so we don't generally spend a lot of time holding each other and touching each other. And people are craving touch, especially post-COVID, when people couldn't touch each other. That was a real deficit in oxytocin, and a lot of people got depressed.
Exactly. I always say that we are creatures of touch that don't touch each other enough. And we need more touch, because really our nervous system is wired for touch and caress. And we see it also in other mammalians, in pets, when they want love and when they want to show love, they come and they lick and they take your hands and put it on there, to caress them and to feel. They need to feel like baby and children. They are also hugging and touching and want to feel skin to skin and heart beating. So when we grow up, we forget about it, and we think that, words can replace all our needs, to talk to each other. But still, we need also the touch, even with children, with our children. So we feel more secured and connected, but usually we save it for the romantic love. And also in the romantic love, we put more emphasis, for the sex. This is like a man's world. So it's more about, the act itself, the physical act, while we women and also men, but testosterone makes them hurry for the second base. But we need more touch, we need more connection, we need more, even to be sexual with each other, not only to have sex, but to be skin to skin. The tantra, the touch, to feel, at first to feel secured, protected. This is our nervous system. It is wired. It is socially wired. The polyvagal theory of Stephen Porges talk also about it, that when we feel the warmth of another person, our heart beats, heart beating slower, and we feel secured and relaxed, especially relaxed. The relaxation response of the body, it's like the opposite of fight and flight, is rest and digest. To rest, the body goes back to the normal homeostasis. You feel that you can lay your head and relax, like a baby in his mother's arm or father's arms, of course. So we need it. That's why we so much seek for love in our lives.
Yeah, and it's also why it's important to attune to a partner, to match your heartbeat, to calm down, to not just go right into the sexual act, but to have foreplay and to have touch and to have sensuality, not just sexuality. And a lot of people feel very unsafe sexually. One of the
Yes,
ways that I help people to make their list of what they must have in a relationship is to start with safety and how they can feel safe emotionally, sexually, physically, financially. Because if you look at the safety, then you say, okay, I need somebody who's going to make me feel safe in all these areas. Then who does he need to be or she need to be for me to feel safe this way, right? So a person who's going to make you feel
exactly.
emotionally safe is going to be a good communicator, is going to be somebody who's self-regulated, is going to be somebody who doesn't get into conflict in a horrible way. I mean, you talk about the four horsemen. I mean, we could go off in 100 tangents, but that whole attunement and sensuality is just such an important piece. And the safety, I'm so glad you brought that up too.
Yes, and I think it's also even more important, in the digital era that people meet each other in dating apps. So we are not screening for safety in dating apps. We basically most of the time screen for, the alpha male or the alpha female. And we know from data of Tinder, that not all men gets messages from women, just small amount, like the alpha types that has a high self-esteem, and they know how to market themselves better in the apps. The physical, they look good, and our evolutionary brain scan these parameters. But in real life, when we meet a person, he can be tall, he can be, or she can be, good looking, but if we don't see in the eyes, the safety and the emotional connection, uh, we will not, continue to the next phase. We will feel that, it's okay that the person has all many criteria that I look for, but something sensually, something, the feelings, the emotions that I feel when I'm with this person doesn't feel right. But the scanning in the first place in the dating apps was not for the right characteristics, because we don't have the data. The brain just see pictures, mainly pictures today, even not, words or things that people say about themselves. It's basically just a photo of a person.
Yeah, it's hard to assess safety. It's hard to assess connection without meeting somebody. Unfortunately, a lot of people meet people, and even though those red flags go up, they still continue to see them because they have status, they are good looking, they have a good job, and they feel important when they're with them. And when this airs, I will have just done a workshop on fixing your broken picker, which is one of the reasons people are single is because they overlook red flags. They don't know what they must have in a relationship. So they rely on chemistry and all the biological chemicals that you talk about. And they don't know their attachment styles. So they don't work on becoming
Exactly.
more secure in attachment. And so that workshop that I'm going to be doing is just a few hours where I'm going to focus on all these key areas to help people to start to improve how they seek partners, because we can get into those traps very easily, right?
Yes, I mean, it's amazing how our brain is wired for narcissists. I mean, to look for status and to look for the red flags, basically. So I heard many people come to me and say, he was too good to me. I was not attracted to him. So how can it be? So basically, in nature, a female will say the same story if she could talk. He was bad to me, but I couldn't stop thinking about him. Okay, so it's really it takes. I agree with you. It takes a lot of awareness and work and effort in order to cut this evolutionary wiring and start to be attracted to the right characteristic of a person. I'm divorced twice, and I have a history, of bad choice, and that's what drove me to write the book. And I'm a biologist. My education is in genetics and hormone research, but in the 10 years, last 10 years, last decade, I moved to this area of understanding the genes and the hormones and the neurons that makes us behave as we behave and makes us, do the choices that we do, make the choices that we make. And I wanted to understand me, why am I going time after time, after a wrong relationship, missing the red flags. And it took a lot of effort, to understand and to rewire the brain to be attracted. It took time, the first year. Now I'm in very, very healthy and good relationship. But in the beginning, I wasn't attracted to this amazing person. And I told myself, okay, now I understand that what attracts me is not good for me. And what it doesn't attract me probably is good for me. So I need to work on it and to do this work, from the prefrontal cortex, from this area, not from the limbic, emotional, evolutionary, ancient reptile brain, but from the forehead, from the more mature. And after the age of 40, I could be mature enough to understand things. And that's why I wrote the book. And I said, okay, we should understand ourselves and our operating system. And when you understand how it works and why it is wired like it is wired, the why, evolutionary, why most female in nature are looking for the alpha male, even though he will not be not all the time be, good for her or faithful. And also men also are attracted sometimes to not the right choice. Usually we have all the reasons to fail in relationship, and we have to understand it when we go to do this amazing and most important choice in life. I believe is the person that you are going to live with. It doesn't have to be, of course, happily ever after, but the person that you choose, especially the person that you choose as the father or mother of your children, will be the highest impact on your health and your happiness and your well-being in life. Career, you can change. Your place of residence, you can replace. The country that you live, you can replace. But the person that you choose to build a family with, it is unchangeable. So it's the most important choice that we make, and we don't give it enough thinking and efforts. Like you said, understanding our attachment style, understanding how the brain was wired very early in life by the connections that we had with our family members, especially the mother and also the father, and what images of love we have in our brain, in a hormonal mechanism. When you make more of the hormone, more receptors will be expressed in the brain. So if I grew up in a home that I was caressed and kissed and touched and loved, and my parents were, talk nicely to me and empowering me, I will grow up to be a person that is need for these gestures and words. And if I grew up in a very different house, it will affect everything. It will affect my love patterns, how I connect with others, and what I need to feel secure. Sometimes it can be the opposite of what we think, when somebody talks to me aggressively or humiliating me. This is love, because in biology there is no right and wrong. There is adaptiveness and there is a survival. And if I grew up and can have children of my own, it means that my parents are evolutionary success, even though they were humiliating me. Okay, for the sake of the example, there is no right and wrong in nature. So we are looking for the same patterns that are familiar to our brain. When you see someone in a very toxic relationship and you ask yourself why she or he stays in this relationship, We need to go back and understand how the nervous system is wired very early in life, and how the emotional systems, the operating systems of emotions, which is the 90% of our behavior and our choices in life, are manifested or are made by emotions. So understanding the design of the emotional systems, operating system very early in life is very important. And there is more research and data and studies that are done in animals and humans also to understand how the system is being wired and how it affects the person in his whole life. And unless you do some work on this trauma or on the love styles, the attachment styles that are broken.
It's such an important piece of the whole thing. I mean, when I first started in this career, I didn't know any of this. I mean, what was available was more about how to look good, how to flirt, all the external stuff. And as I became more and more involved in the psychology of it and the biology of it, it was fascinating to me. And it made sense. Even reading Gottman's book, The Seven Principles of a Successful Marriage, or whatever it's called, just reading about the four horsemen and why relationships that involve conflict, that are in the way that he describes, that are, I'm just trying to think of what the four horsemen: stonewalling, criticism, defensiveness, and when you disdain, like when you really just can't stand this person, they make you sick.
Yes.
We get into relationships where these things show up, and they're so destructive, and they often show up early on, and there are red flags that show up early on, and yet we keep making these choices. And when I start working with a client and I see the patterns, and you described how you started to see the patterns for yourself, and often it's that alpha person, the person who turns out to be more self-centered. Somebody who's really successful is mostly focused on work and not necessarily on relationships and nurturing relationships. And they have their own unresolved trauma, which is why they focus so much on work. And so understanding that's not going to make a good partner, that might make a good, sex
provider, maybe, but
maybe
and also
a provider.
sex, yes.
Yeah, maybe it'll be sexy. Maybe they'll have money, but maybe they won't be generous with their money. No, it doesn't guarantee safety at all. And yet we continue to make these choices, and we say, we don't know how this happened. We got blindsided again and again. I remember the last guy that I dated told me about his ex-wife. We were on our first date, and he was telling me that she was a bully and all these different things. And so I said, who did she remind you of in your family of origin? And so he said, my brother bullied me. So it's not always a parent. And so I said, oh, so you married your brother.
Right.
And he said, I never considered that. Like he never thought of it. So we do this, and then we develop certain behaviors that are protective behaviors. And, so tell us a little bit about how you started to become more attracted to the man you're with now, because he was not your type. And I think a lot of people really struggle with, how long do I wait until attraction grows? And how do I know, like, what was present to begin with that got you to do that?
It took, I think, 1.5 years, which is a lot of time. We became like friends, acquaintance and friends. We shared, he was very interesting, in articles and research. And although he's not a biologist, he's a lawyer. And he was very curious. He's a curious person. And I said, okay, I'm not attracted to him, but it's very nice I feel, I'm attracted to his brain. He's very smart, and he also likes to listen to me. And he finds things that I say, and also he also brings a lot of insights and discussion from his own intellect. So we became friends, like meeting something once in a month or 2 months, writing to each other in email from time to time. And I, I put him in the friendship zone. Yeah, he's a good friend. And, when you grow up, you have your own friends and you don't, make new friends easily. So I said, it's very nice to meet someone in the middle of life and they have a good friend. And I was in a relationship and he was in a relationship for 1 year. And then I started to notice after the other wrong relationship ended for me. I started to understand that I look for his calls and for his emails, and I find myself um, suddenly, more attracted to him after 1.5 years, because we had bonding, not sexually, just from the intellect and from the emotional connection. And from there, the love was evolved. And today I'm so attracted to him that it's amazing how oxytocin, when it's secreted and you love someone, you see him differently, totally different than you saw him in at first. So I always say that wait with sex, at least for the fifth date, because when we make love, sexually, testosterone is the main actor in play, and testosterone likes novelty to have the power struggle, all the eroticism, but he goes up fast and he goes down fast the day after. And if there is not a bonding, emotional bonding, at least between the two person, they just met in the bar and then they had sex in bed, uh, the day after, there is a good chance that no one will call, or maybe one of them will wait for the other to call, but the call will not come. So if we want to make love last, and so we shouldn't play too much with testosterone, but let oxytocin lead the way, to meet each other, to talk about, not like an interview, a job interview, superficial conversation, but really more deep. I like the questions of Dr. Arthur Arun. He has the oxytocin questionnaire, the 36 questions about the dreams of the person, the memories, the childhood memories, a conversation that are more deep. And because I believe every person is interesting, every person is, we should have curiosity to the world, even if it's not the love of my life. Be curious about human beings and feel connected, even if it won't end with and the interesting thing is that the first time I met him was in a trip that a guy that I dated in a dating app invited him. He's a friend of a friend that I met in dating app. It didn't work between us, but we also stayed in touch. And then the friend suggested that we go to a trip, and he will bring friends and I will bring friends, like a friends trip, without children, because we all had children, and we took this Saturday, that the weekend that is free, and it was a lovely trip. But it's also interesting because sometimes you meet someone in a date and maybe that it won't end in a romance or in a relationship, but you feel good with the person and you feel interesting. It's interesting conversation. You want to keep in touch. And sometimes when we open our social circles, some other people can come, friends of friends of friends of friends. This is how our brain really wired, not for the dating apps, but for circles, social circles, to meet a friend of my brother or a friend of some friends of family. That there is some circle, something that connects us in the broader sense. because we lived in small communities. The whole, in evolutionary terms, humans lived with very small clans, and they met, the people that were in the surroundings, and they were connected somehow to the clan and to the family. So this is my story.
Well, it's a great story. Thank you for sharing it. I love that you built a strong foundation for friendship first. And so few people take the time to do that, even if they don't even know that it's turning into something more. I have a client right now who has built the most beautiful foundation. They are holding off on sex, and it's been a couple months. They had gotten so into the deep conversations that I said, I want you to touch each other more. They had forgotten about the touch, and it became scary, almost like the buildup was so big. And now things are moving beautifully, and it's just the most beautiful relationship either one of them have had. And I think that's one
Wow.
of the bonuses to dating later in life. If you've had relationships that didn't work out and you have learned what got in the way, and now you're dating differently with intention, and you're much more focused on the right things, then you can take your time, and people are much more willing to build friendships, hopefully. And if not, then it's the wrong person, I think.
Yes. First to become friends, and then because I think the obstacles is that sometimes you become friends with someone and you put him in the friend zone. Yes, we will not be lovers, we will be friends. And let's, open our minds. Don't put people in boxes. Open the
Mhm.
mind. Sometimes the love of your life, I don't like to say use these words, but it's too big for but it's sometimes beneath our nose. It's here, it's right here, but we put this person in the friendship zone, but it easily can become love and infatuation. You just need to touch more with that person and stay together more and do things together, more oxytocin, more dopamine, more serotonin, basically in orgasms and, touching and feeling, and suddenly you feel in love. So, I look at the world in the lens of biology and chemistry, but basically, we talked earlier about the Orthodox Jews, and in Israel also, in the world also. So it's fascinating to me. They meet in matchmaking, and sometimes they meet for 3-4 times, and then they get married. If they accept the other, it's okay. So and then in the Orthodox tradition, they say that you learn to love the person. I mean, if you are not disgusted by the person, you are still attracted to him and everything, but you start to build a house together, a home together, you touch and you make love, and then children comes and you are starting to feel connected, unless of course there is violence or other harsh conditions. But mainly I believe that we can fall in love with any person if you give us enough time and enough touch and do things for each other, support. Like, many people are fell in love during war or during, stress conditions. We know it also in the army, that you have stressful conditions and the adrenaline works, and a person that you never thought you will fall in love with, suddenly in these certain conditions, you feel very connected to the person because you both had an experience together. So it's very good in the day to go to the amusement park or do something exciting also,
Yeah.
or just to help each other.
Yeah. Well, you said your first husband you met in the army, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
in the army.
Yeah. It
Like he was
happens.
tall and
Yeah.
handsome,
That's
and
enough, right?
that's enough. Yes, and
Yeah. I
had
mean,
higher status than me.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I actually chose my husband from my prefrontal cortex and not my limbic system. So I went the other direction totally, like very logical, like, oh, he checks all the boxes, he'll make a good husband, he'll keep me safe. And I do believe that the relationship could have grown and been successful had he grown with me. We had crisis early on in our relationship, and it affected us very differently. And he shut down, and I looked for solution, and he basically was depressed a lot of our marriage, and without admitting it or getting help. And so I think when you're dealing with somebody who's shut down, who doesn't want to discuss anything, the relationship can't grow,
Yes.
and the intimacy didn't grow. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's from Venezuela, who is in a long-term marriage. They had separated briefly when their son died and had a big crisis in their family. And they came back together. And she said that their marriage is very strong, but it's mostly focused on intimacy, not sex. And it was interesting to hear her, because she's a very touchy person. I think people in many other countries are much more comfortable with touch than
Yes.
certainly Americans are. But she said, just sitting on the couch and watching a show together, and holding each other, touching each other, having those deep conversations. And that's the whole premise behind the 36 questions that you mentioned before. The
Yes.
experiment was to see if people could fall in love with anybody. And many, many
Yes.
people did fall in love. They did develop very close bonds, because these questions are much more intimate than the questions most people ask.
Yes. Like, where do you work? And yes,
Yeah.
all the superficial
Yeah.
things about life.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all about, this is the chemistry, because we don't think that when we have conversations, something happens in our body, but it's really a lot has to do with chemicals, basically. And when you hack the system, I believe that you can be more empowered in the search for love, and also in the relationship. I know that the knowledge that I accumulated really changed my life, changed the way I behave in the relationship, and making less mistakes. I wouldn't say no mistakes, but less than before. First, to teach myself to self-regulate, and not ask the partner to regulate me, and understand the limits, of the relationship. It has limits. Not all my needs, or not all his needs, can be satisfied by each other, by the relationship. So I give a lot of space, but I didn't do previously. I was very jealous, and I'm insecure, attachment style I have. And I know exactly what neurons was wired in my childhood, in quotation marks. But I mean, that I know what trauma caused me, yeah, to be insecure. But today, I cannot change my past. I can accept it. And the trauma taught me to be very pleasing, because I was scared. So I had to be a people pleaser. And then I became, in relationship, a very pleasing person, which cost me a lot of, heartbreaks. But then I learned how not to please, and how to be more self-regulated and more focused on me, yeah, my needs. Because when I'm regulated, everything will be okay. When I'm not in, too much stress. Um, and I learned that I need a lot of space for me. I mean, because I'm a people pleaser, when my partner is with me, I all the time think what he needs, and what should we do, and if he feel comfortable, if he feel okay. And only when I'm with myself, I can be, free from thinking about other persons, just thinking about me, and what I need is this moment. Maybe I want to sleep, maybe I want to go out with friends. So we don't live in the same house. We live separately, which I think it's very, very good for relationship, because of this wiring of sexual satiety, the Coolidge effect. When you are with the same person over time, less dopamine, the pleasure hormone, is released for the same familiar signal, touch and voice. So like we meet every second day, and once in weekend, and I soon realized that it's best for me, but because in first relationships I had to be all the time with my lover. We cannot be separated because my parents were like this. They were inseparable. So this is the image of love that I had. If you love someone, you want to be all the time glued to each other. And then I realized, how important it is to be apart, to be together, but to be apart, and to have not the same hobbies, different circles of friends. Some friends, we meet together, but some friends we meet separately, and it's like be a whole person with another person, a whole person, and not finding someone to complete you. I'm a complete person. I have my flaws and I work on them. And I'm not all the time easy person for anyone. And I have my bad days and my good days, and I have depression sometimes. And this is mine. I need to fix it, and I know what to do when I feel down and what to do when I feel up. And it's not uh, uh, the duty of my partner and to make me, happy. It's me to make. I need to make myself happy firstly. Uh, so I learned that it really gave me a balance, which I didn't know how to make this balance before when I was younger. So maybe it's also the brain that is developing, and also the knowledge that I got that it's okay to be apart, and it is even good for the system to reset the brain and to long for the person, to crave to be together, not to be together all the time. And I remember at the beginning he was flying abroad for work. I was, definitely by the definition of anxious attachment style. I couldn't stand being apart, that I cannot have control. It's basically the need to control. So I learned to release, to release. And this is slowly made me more secure. But he has a secure style. So it is very helpful to be attracted to a person that is secure style. But sometimes when you are insecure, you are magnetically attracted to other insecure person and then there is this tragic dance between them. And the rational thinking is to be attracted to a secure person that will be able to may help you be more secure.
Yeah, well, you just shared so much good stuff. I think so many people can relate to being anxiously attached and needing your partner to be with you all the time and to give you lots and lots of encouragement. And it's a very common thing, and it's common for anxiously attached people to be attracted to avoidance. And then it's that dance. As soon as the avoidant gets closer, the anxious person moves back, and then the avoidant gets more avoidant. And then we just ignite all of these old wiring in each other. Yes. And I'm wondering, I have a question for you. When you said your parents were inseparable, whether that made you more ignored as a child because they were so inseparable. Yeah. So that also has a big impact on how we become more anxious, right? So not only was the imprint of what love looked like as inseparable, but also it's not enough, and I have to fight for love and fight to be seen.
It was exactly the feeling of my childhood, the fight to be seen, and made me very, achieving person, and in my feeling, it was never enough. I had a PhD and I had this, and I was a very good student. And, all the time the teacher was saying such good things about me, but it was never enough. Like I couldn't have the attention and the love that I was so much craving. So slowly I start to, disregard the achievements, like, okay, it's nothing for me. Yes. So sometimes people say, why aren't you celebrating your achievements? You're doing nice things. People love you and they love your content and whatever you said. And, for me, it's like still looking for my mother to it's amazing for me. It's amazing how much, the imprinting process of the brain, it is so powerful. It is so powerful. You will always look for the affirmation and the validation of the parent. And if you feel like it is something is empty in you, even though other people will tell you and will really give you, raise your self-esteem, it will still be so low for me. I'm working on it also, but it's still, I'm amazed how much it's hardly wired. It's very hardly wired.
Having the awareness and for you to be able to speak it out loud is huge because it's vulnerable. And it also means that there's a level of acceptance of where you are and what you want to work towards. And I think so many people are in denial or they can't see it. And I remember sharing with my mother something about one of my achievements. I think I had like a really great year financially. And her response was, maybe you should go into real estate. It was just like, what? And I've learned to be, because that was what she did. And so I said to her, Mom, first of all, I'm not really feeling heard here because I just shared with you that I'm really proud of myself, that I just achieved this incredible financial freedom. And you're telling me I should go into another career instead of celebrating with me. And I've learned to ask her for what I want instead of just hope that she's going to give me what I want, because it's really hard for her. I do understand her limitations. And I think that when I learned how to set boundaries with both my parents, that was a huge game changer for me. Just, I know you're trying to help, when you're giving unsolicited advice, but can I tell you what would be better for me? And then just trying to train them to see things differently and to speak to me differently, because I didn't even know why I would get so angry and feel so unseen until I started to do this work.
Wow, it's amazing. Yes, I can relate to it a lot because also for me, when I put boundaries, especially with my mother, I started to live different life. Also in, the relationships that I chose, it was different when I need to do it my own way and really, release the bond with her even, to break it even also in order to heal myself. I needed to break this bond and then make again another bond, a new bond, which was more suitable for me. And it was a huge step for me. But only when I did it, I really get released with a lot of acceptance. Yes, this is her, this is me, this is what I need. And today I'm more aligned with my needs.
Yeah, and that's the key, to be aligned with what you need, to understand your own operating system and what you've given up in the past by being a people pleaser, trying to make other people happy, being focused on others. I mean, it's such a common thing that we do that. We're raised to make other people more important. And once you realize, oh, I've given up my own self-care, my own needs to make other people happy, and nobody's happy, really. It's such a game changer for us. Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. You can listen to over 70 million songs and thousands of playlists and stations. Plus, you can now stream your favorite podcasts, like Last First Date Radio. You can listen to any song, anytime, anywhere, on any of your devices. Get Amazon Music Unlimited for free for 30 days. Just head on over to getamazonmusic.com/last first date to learn more and claim this offer. I mean, we could talk forever.
Yeah.
You cover so much in your book, and I can relate to so much of who you are and what you've shared. And but I want to get to the final question, which is just a kind of from a scientific point of view, your final words of advice for anyone who wants to go on their last first date.
First, like we said, to become curious about human beings. Every person has a story and has his own operating system. So just be curious about the world. Don't come with the relation shopping, the list of this characteristic, which are mostly the alpha male or alpha female, that will only most of the time make you miserable. So remember that mathematicians calculated the probability to find the one person that is matched with all the parameters. It's a good match. It's like the probability that the humanity will be extinct next year, like 1 to 562, which is 10 times more than the probability to be millionaires. So there is no the one, like in the Disney movies. There are many people with many traits, and we should really select for the right traits, like, do the relationshiping, to be together, to feel after the date what you feel about the person, what you feel with yourself in when you are with the person. Do you want to meet him or her again? Play games. I know it sounds harsh, but play games, because our brain interprets too much accessibility. When you show the person that you really, really, really want to be with him or her, our primitive brain interprets it as a weakness, and it's someone that is not good for me, or not in my league, like, so be very, it's sometimes hard, but be very self-secured and with self-esteem. Like, I am a person with my whole life, and no, not to be too accessible. Like, if you said maybe we meet tomorrow, I need to check. Okay, maybe I can, maybe I can't. Not to be too easy to get. I know it sounds harsh, but we see that we have this wiring that we appreciate more a person that is not too accessible for us. So please remember that, and not to send too much messages, or to show too much interest. The right amount of interest that is suitable for this date and this person and this moment together, and really be aligned with yourself. We know from research that the number one predictor for happiness and successful relationship doesn't have nothing to do with the other person, the qualities of the person, but with your satisfaction of life and your stress levels. Because if we have a lot of stress and trauma, we tend, like we said, to choose the wrong persons for us. And also when we feel good in our career, good in our family, good in our other relationships in life, we come more open and more relaxed and secured to a relationship, and not with so the number one thing that is important is to self-care, to first elevate your satisfaction of life. And oxytocin is not a commodity. It's all around us. It's a resource that is not limited. You can have the oxytocin not only from sex and from a partner, romantic love, but from all around, with the connections with other people, community and friends and family. And when we come loaded with oxytocin to a relationship, we can be more secured, relaxed, and make new bonds easily. We are not lonely and looking for the one resource that will make us happy.
Yeah, that desperation, which doesn't look good on people. But when you come and you're already full, I think a lot of people who are insecure, who are dating people like that, think that you don't need a person in your life because you're already so full. And I think it's important for us to let the people we date know that we have a full life and we want a partner. It's not one or the other. It's not like you may fit into this little slot I have left over, but I have a great life. I love my life and I'm missing this piece. It's a wonderful thing that I'm looking for. And oxytocin is everywhere that you look for it. So I think that that's really important for people. I mean, go and source it, go find it in the hobbies that you love and doing things for other people and volunteering. I mean, I love my work so much because I make a difference in people's lives and I wake up happy because of that, because I know that I can contribute to people's lives, and doing this podcast is helpful. And so you're doing that work also. And your website is
Liat Yakir. Okay.
And to get 15% off of your courses, you just use the coupon Last First Date at checkout. And it's just go to the course link on your website. Well, thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation. You've shared so much rich information to help people have a better love life and not let our old wiring stop us from the love that we're seeking. And it's possible. Like, don't overlook your neighbor, your old high school friend. There are people who are everywhere, and just connect. Get out of your house and go talk to people. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Liat.
Sandy. It was a pleasure for me to know you.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for listening today. If you love our show, please give us a high rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And we're on every podcast platform. So tell your friends, share the podcast. And as always, here's to your last first date. If you are ready to get unstuck, gain new tools, become more empowered, and finally find your last first date, I'd love to talk to you. Fill out an application to be considered for a complimentary half-hour love breakthrough session at lastfirstdate.com/application.